Hey guys, Karl here. Today we're going to be talking about the FX3 Mark II, if it comes out in the near future. The FX3 was the camera that everyone who purchased an A7S III hated because it was the camera that we really wanted. It was a cinema little pocket camera that just had all the bells and whistles that we wanted, which we got in the A7S III, but in a more cinema form. So what will set the FX3 apart from an FX3 Mark II apart from an A7S IV or even what we already have right now? In my last video, one of my last videos, I talked about the FX6 Mark II and what we could potentially be seeing in that. And I think that this will be that bleeding line between those two cameras, that they'll have to delineate them in some way so you go with one or the other. The FX3 is appealing because it's so small. It has pretty much everything you need in a camera that you can do so much with. The FX3, FX30. So let's talk about what I think is coming. So a new sensor, and I'm just going down my list here that I wrote out. So a new sensor, this would be a full frame stack sensor, kind of like the A9 III, which could unlock like global shutter or near global readout, reduce rolling shutter and higher frame rates, 4K 120 without the crop. So those are three things right there that Sony will have to do on the next iteration of all their cameras. And this kind of is touching base on what I already talked about on my last video of the FX6 Mark II. Internal RAW recording. Currently, the FX3 needs an Atomos recorder to enable it to record ProRes RAW. Some sort of ProRes RAW built in, or even that Blackmagic RAW built in would be pretty cool. The ability to do that would be really neat. Internal 12-bit ProRes RAW or Sony's own proprietary internal, maybe raw light, like a Canon or something along those lines. Which again, we touched on with the FX6 Mark II and the FX3. It just makes sense that they kind of like bleed those lines into each other. So better low light, dual base ISO. I don't think this is something that, this is part of my list, but I'll talk about it. I don't think this is something that you can really adjust on, unless you make like 12,800 up to like 16,000 ISO, be its high base. I don't think you need that. I think the 12,800 on the A7S III and FX3 are good enough. In fact, I think I would like to see one at 6,400. So at 640, and then that 6,400, and then that 12,800. I would like to see a third base ISO in the middle of those two, so you can have somewhere in there to be able to do that with. Active cooling system. So I know that the FX3 already comes with a fan built into it because it's a cinema line, but maybe even a better, more robust fan, maybe even a little bit bigger of a body. Not much bigger because it still is a good size on the FX3, but the FX3 Mark II maybe a little bit bigger of a camera body. This one, I don't know. I mean, updated menu system. I like the menu system on the new Sony cameras. It took me a little while to love it, but I've found the fact that I found the workarounds and I do love it. It's a great menu system. Maybe, I don't know. The FX6 menu system is a bit cumbersome and sometimes hard to find things in. So the A7S III FX3 menu system, I think leave it as it is. Improved audio options. I would like to see this one. So a new top handle. I think these cameras have to start incorporating 32-bit float. I think that's going to be a big one for even the FX6, which I left off, the FX6 Mark II and the FX3 or A7S IV. Having internal 32-bit float would be awesome. Being able to toggle that off and on, because obviously if you're just running internal audio, you can't, or internal camera audio, you're not going to run 32-bit float. But having the capability of the XLR input, or maybe even the 3.5 jack, being able to run 32-bit float would be nice. It would be a great addition. And I think that that's something that could potentially be an FX3 option versus a FX6 option, just because of the smaller body, more run and gun. With the FX6, I personally am using a lot of external audio, like I'm recording externally right now, because I don't really like using the internal audio on the FX6, unless I'm in a pinch and I really need to, with that top handle. A new handle, with better preamps or even an integrated 32-bit float, I think would be ideal. Built-in Bluetooth audio support would be pretty awesome also. I could see that being something that makes its way into the new lineup, is some sort of Bluetooth audio recording. That would definitely help out a lot more when it comes to not having an XLR port on the body of the A7, or sorry, the FX3 or the FX6 Mark II or Mark I. Yeah, this is a no-brainer, the AI autofocus boost. So we're going to get that new AI autofocus from the A7R V built into any new camera that comes out in the near future. That's just a guarantee. Longer battery life. So I could see them, I don't know if they're going to change up the Z100 battery. What are they? There's these guys right here. NPFZ100 battery. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they go with a bigger battery or they change up the battery? I mean, it would make sense at this point to change up the battery a little bit because this has been the battery for the last, what is that? Since 2018, 2016, something like that. These batteries came out. Yeah, we're sitting at 2200 milliamps, 16.4 watts, 7.2 volts. I could see it being time, Sony needs to change things up, get a little bit more money out there when it comes to new battery grips, new batteries, new chargers. I could see the new batteries coming in the near future. And maybe with the A7S IV or FX3 Mark II would make sense to incorporate that with internal RAW, potentially global shutter. Things like that would be more taxing on the battery. So I could see that battery has to get a little bit bigger. And battery technology just keeps on improving. So we're long in the tooth on the FZ1 or the FZ100 batteries. Let's talk about a couple of wishlist or like rumor items that I don't think will ever come to fruition, but would be cool. I've talked about these for a long time. An internal ND system. Maybe even just something like what's on the little point and shoot cameras. You have like 2 stops of ND that just go in front of the sensor. That'd be pretty cool. I think that it'd be a huge game changer to have that built into the camera. It seems like they can do it on those small cameras. Granted, the lens is much smaller. There's less moving parts. But at the same time, I mean, this is Sony and we're talking about building out a 50 to 150 lens at f2. Why can't you put a 2-stop ND in front of the sensor? It would just make it so nice to be able to run 640, a little bit of ND behind the lens. It would be a nice addition to have that built into these cameras. And something I think really could come about. Gyro stabilization with real-time correction, not just post-catalyst browse. This one's tough. The A7R V, hands down, has been the best Sony camera that I've used to date for internal stabilization. It does a great job. It did a great job. I sold it, but I really did like it. I think that you can build that system maybe even more robust into a cinema camera, and having that gyro stabilization built in and just giving those parameters, telling people, okay, you have to shoot at this shutter speed, you have to shoot like this, you have to do this to get it to look proper. There is some caveat to that. So, and there's like a law of diminishing return in that sense. But I think that a more robust internal stabilization on the FX3, if you're not going to put it in the FX6 Mark II, the FX3 Mark II, or the A7S IV, will have to have a really, really, really strong internal stabilization. Because some of these other cameras, it's almost like using a gimbal. It's crazy how good they are. And with the technology that like GoPro has with their internal stabilization, even though there is a crop, or like the Insta360 cameras, they can build this stuff out. And it's just something that they have to prioritize to do that. Optional modular XLR handle for those who want to go full stealth mode. I mean, we already have a modular handle on the, this is something that I kind of brought up because of the handle will change. More stealth mode, I don't know what that kind of, something that I thought of. I was like, okay, maybe more stealthy, more like smaller body, or maybe even a bigger body and a smaller handle, because that handle is just, it's so robust, so big, and it's kind of cumbersome. But then you lose your XLR and blah, yada, yada, yada. So it would be nice, it would be really nice to have a smaller handle, or maybe even an optional handle that Sony would make, or you still have that stop start on the top, or you still have the custom functions of it, but you don't have to run this huge like handle with the camera. So those are kind of those 3 things that are wish list items, rumor kind of mill type stuff, even though this is all kind of rumor or kind of like wish list. But yeah, I mean, like that's kind of what I think the FX3 will mold into. And I'll go into A7S IV in another video. It'll be kind of the same thing, but more photocentric. You know what would be a cool one too that I think would come about on the FX3 Mark II is that same back as the A7S, or say A7, get them all confused now, the A7R5, that flip screen situation where you can flip it directly towards you, or you can flip it out and then flip it towards you again. That's an awesome screen, back screen to a camera. And I think that every single camera from here on out has to come with that, period. Which I'm pretty sure the A9 III did come out with that. So the A7 V should have that. The A7S IV should have that. The FX3, FX30 Mark IIs, they should all have that built into them. So, and the naming convention, is it still going to be the FX3 Mark II? Or is it going to be an FX4? That's a good one to talk about. I mean, this is where I'll open up to you guys. What do you think the FX3 will include? Will it be something that's amazing, or will it be just an incremental step forward with some little pieces that we've all been kind of wanting slightly? You know, they've already done a great job of updating the software on all these cameras. Now it's time for some bigger hardware type stuff. So yeah, what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you got. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers.